That is really something special. That's for you, buddy. Hi, Tommy Anthony checking in on you one more time. I think you know me from some other stuff I've done for you. We won't get into that right now. This is Doug Emory, and he's about to walk you through what I believe is going to be your first keyboard lesson. How about we go over there and get the lesson started?
Absolutely.
What do you say?
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right.
So, what have we got here? Digital keyboard?
Well, this is another keyboard. Thought it might be better to teach on this for now, but it's basically the same idea. You'll notice that on pretty much any keyboard that we look at, the keys are all laid out the same. So the things that we teach here, over here, are going to translate to just about any keyboard that you decide to go to.
Right, so if you can play piano, you can play one of these, and vice versa?
Vice versa.
Okay,
the only
great.
difference are the options you have sound-wise, but we'll get into that at another later date.
Very good.
So let's get right into it. I wanted to get into first just kind of a basic naming of the notes and start there. You'll notice there's a pattern to the keys. A set of 2 black keys with 3 white keys, a set of 3 black keys, and 4 white keys. So the starting note below the first of the black keys is a C. And you want to start there, put your thumb of your right hand on the C. And from there going up, it's C, D, E, F, and G. And it's the same for your left hand. The only thing you're going to start off with is your pinky, your
Right.
5th finger.
Right.
So C, D, E, F, and G.
So in other words, the easiest way to find a C on a keyboard, if anybody out there says, where's the C, where's the C? Go to the first grouping of the 2 black keys, go right under the first of the 2 black keys, and there's a C right there.
And that's always C. No matter where you go along the keyboard, it's always going to be a C.
That's the quickest way. Just go to the 2 black keys, and the first one right under, boom, C.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Well, good.
So the first thing you want to try and get used to is maybe just playing a little bit each note. Just get used to that and how it feels.
Okay, now you're simply changing the notes with each finger.
That's right.
Each finger does a different note on the hand.
Right. And just to get yourself used to playing on the piano, get used to the feel of the keys and how that works, just start off there and that'll help.
Okay.
The other thing I want to take a look at is what we call whole steps and half steps, because we'll need to know this as we go along. A half step is notes that are adjacent to each other without another note in between.
In between.
Okay, so for example, a half step would be like C to the next black key, which would be C sharp. Okay?
Okay, so when you go up from a C to the next note, it's a sharp.
That's right.
C, C sharp.
Right.
So then this one here would be?
That's D, and that's a whole step from C, because you'll notice there's a note in between.
Okay.
Okay?
Right, I understand.
So we need to know that. I don't want to stay on here a long time, but we do need to know that for from some later issues. You will notice that there are some half steps that don't have a black key in the middle of them. For example, E and F. E and F does not have a black key in between them. They are adjacent to each other, therefore they are a half step.
Well, let me see. C, C sharp.
Right.
D, D sharp.
Right.
After D in the alphabet, we got E,
Right.
and then there's no black key, so it goes to F. That's what you, okay,
and
I see.
and that's a half step.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
I just don't want there to be any confusion between the fact that they don't all have to be, whole steps don't go from white to white necessarily.
Okay.
That's the only point.
A little bit of a curve there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. The reason I bring that up is we want to talk about the remaining notes that we have left in the C scale, and then talk about the major scale structure. So we've shown you C through G. And there's only 2 notes left in the scale, and that would be A and B. Okay? And then you're right back at C again.
Which would be the octave to
Right.
where you started.
Right. So the whole scale, if you were to play it, would be
all white keys.
Right.
The C major scale is all white keys consecutively. You didn't even have to jump up.
That's right.
You just press one right after the other, and you did a major scale in C.
That's right.
Okay.
So the reason I wanted you to take a look at that is I want you to see the structure. This is an easy way to lay out the structure of a major scale.
Okay.
You'll see where the whole steps and half steps lie. For example, the first step is a whole step, C to D, right? Because we have the note in between.
Right.
Same thing with D to E. Again, we have a note in between, so therefore it's a whole step.
This one right here is in between them. That's what you're saying.
That's right.
Okay.
Now, if you look from E to F is a half step. Okay? There's no note in between the two.
There was no note, right.
Okay. Back to a whole step between F and G. A whole step between G and A. A whole step between A and B.
Right.
And a half step between
step.
B and C.
Again, so the easiest way to figure it, it's not all that tough. If there's a black key in between the two white keys,
Right.
you've got a whole step.
Right.
If there is no black key, such as here, you've got a half step.
Right.
I also noticed the way you fingered the scale. You
Right.
didn't just go, you have a certain...
Right, yeah, I don't want to spend a lot of time on the fingering, but to get through one octave of a major scale,
Right.
you want to put your thumb under after the third finger.
So you go 3 fingers and then start again.
That's right.
You don't keep going.
Thumb under. Right, and that's just to get you through the major scale.
That'll help later, though.
Absolutely.
To play it that way will facilitate
Absolutely.
Okay.
And the other thing is I want you to take a look at the structure of a major scale, which is why I talked about those things.
Okay.
So we have 2 whole steps to start off with, a half step, 1, 2, 3 more whole steps, and a half step.
To finish it.
That structure, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, is true starting on any key. So you can construct a major scale from any key using that formula. And again, that will help you later on when we start to deal with key signatures and which ones are sharp or flat in a given key. So just kind of have that there, know that this is at this portion of the tape in case you need to go back, and we'll move on from here.
Okay.
All right? Yeah, man.
How about I get over there and you teach us something like what you just did?
Come on up.
You mean come on over there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. It was coming up is a different thing. All right. Yes, I'm here. Let's do it.
Well, so the first thing I want to get into is teaching you a little bit about some triads, some chords we're going to use in this song. So we're going to stay in C, going to use the scale that we had talked about. And triads are 3-note chords. And they are all built off the root of the chord, which we're going to start off with C. So that's our root. So put your thumb on C. And your third finger is already on the third of the chord, which is E. It's funny how that works out.
Funny.
And the fifth of the chord is on your fifth finger, G.
Which is the G.
That's right. And that's your first triad. That's a C triad.
So a C triad, C, whatever the name of the chord is, that's your root.
Right.
If I say a D, what's the root of D? D.
That's
so that's
right.
a starter.
That's
and
right.
as far as C goes, it's a C, second note would be an E,
Right.
and the last one would be a G.
That's right. And these numbers that I'm talking about all reference that scale that we talked about earlier. So in other words, the first note, otherwise known as the root, is your first note, number 1. And we can count up 2, 3 to get to the third, and 4, 5 to get to the fifth. The numbering system will become important as we get through this.
Okay, so when you say 1, 3, 5, it's the root, the third, and the fifth of the chord.
That's right.
Okay.
The next chord we need to talk about is built off of F. Now, if you count up 1, 2, 3, 4, F is the fourth note from C. Therefore, it's the 4 chord when we talk about the key of C.
Okay.
Okay? So we're going to move our thumb up to F.
Start with the
on
thumb
F.
again.
That's right. And in the same way that we counted to get the third and the fifth off of C, we're going to do the same thing for F.
So it's F, 1, 2, takes us
That's
to...
right, to A.
Right.
Right? And then 4, 5 takes us back to C.
Okay.
Right? So your F triad would be F, A, and C. Okay?
Okay.
So let's go back a little bit. Your C triad, C, E, and G.
Right.
And your F triad, F, A, and C. Now there's one more chord that I want to talk about right now, and that's the G triad, excuse me. And that's the same, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to move our thumb up to G. Now if we count it, let's go back 1 second. Go back to C and count up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. G ends up on the 5th.
So
on
G
your 5th
is
finger.
the 5 chord
In the key of C.
in the key of C.
Exactly.
Okay.
Okay? So we're going to take our thumb, move it up to G, and do the same thing we've just done for C and F. So G is 1, 2, 3, we land on B, right? 4, 5, we land on D.
Right.
Okay? So here's your G triad.
Now the
Okay.
cool thing, as far as this intro we just did, the F and the G are right next to each other. So
That's
once you've
right.
got those 3 fingers in position, you just slide them over.
Well, we're going to
Right?
talk about some voicings or inversions that you can use to make playing these songs a little bit easier.
Okay.
But you need to understand initially this concept of the triads and where they are and how they work, because it'll get a little confusing later on. But I want you to understand that. But let's go ahead at this point and let's take a look at. Let's go back to the F chord. So put your thumb on F. And take a look. If you look, there's a common tone or a note that's the same in both the C chord and the F chord, and that would be C. Now, in this case, the C ends up being an octave higher than where we played it for the C triad.
Right.
Now, for practical purposes, it doesn't really make sense to be jumping around. You kind of want economy of motion, which I know came up in the drum video.
Yeah, Lee likes that a lot.
It's the same thing in piano. You want to try and keep things efficient when you're playing piano. So let's go back and take a look at the C triad, which is down here.
Right.
Now, what would make the most sense is if we could take that C note from the F triad and use the same C note from the C triad. Okay? So we're going to drop the C down an octave, down to middle C,
Okay.
on the thumb. Keep the thumb where it is, and we're going to just move the 3rd and 5th finger up to F and A. Now, if you notice, the notes are the same. We haven't changed any notes. We've just changed where the C lies within the chord. It's now at the bottom
As
instead
opposed to
of at the
being
top.
up here, now you're just doing your C over here.
That's right.
Okay.
And that'll keep you from having to jump. Instead of doing this, now you can do this. Your hand stays in the same spot. Your thumb doesn't move at all. It's just economy of motion, keeps things simple. There you go.
Simple's good.
Simple is very good. We can do a similar thing with the G chord. So let's go back and take a look at the G triad. We're going to put our thumb back on G. We have G, B, and D. Now again, to get to this, we'd have to jump around a lot from where we are before. But if we drop the D down an octave, the same way
Same thing you did to the C.
Same thing we did to a C, we end up in a similar position that we ended up on the F triad.
Okay.
Now, let's take a look at that whole movement, going from C to F. And now the G, you're going to slide everything up a whole step. Now again,
Right.
notice the notes are the same.
Right.
G, B, and D. We've only changed the position of the D note so that it makes more sense
Sure.
when you go to play.
Sure.
Okay? So the whole comping pattern for this particular song would look like this and sound like this.
1, 2, 3, 4, 1.
Right?
Okay.
So that makes it simple, makes it easier to play.
As opposed to
rather than-
moving all 3 fingers like I was suggesting earlier. That's why he's the teacher.
Exactly. So it
Okay.
makes a little bit more sense.
All right. Cool.
Okay?
Well, that's good.
So let's go on to the next section. Basically, we're going to keep this simple because there's guitars playing. They're kind of doing a lot of movement. So we're going to keep this part simple, and we're going to just play what we call whole notes, or we're just going to play the chord and hold it.
For 4 beats?
Actually, in this case, it's for two measures, 8 beats.
8 beats.
Yes.
2 measures, 4 beats per measure.
That's right.
A measure has 4 beats.
That's right.
Okay, good.
Okay.
I'm trying to keep up.
So the bridge basically consists of those same chords,
Right.
the C, F, and G in different order,
Right?
with one extra chord thrown in, and that's a D chord.
A D.
Right.
I think we might have to use one of the black keys.
I think you're right.
All right.
So a D chord consists of, again, we're going to start on the root, which you said yourself.
D. When
D.
he says D, what's the root? D.
That's right. So put your thumb on D. Now we're going to go to F sharp. So if you count up 1, 2, 3,
Right?
you end up on F. But for reasons we won't get into at this point, we need to use F sharp, which is the next black key adjacent to
For
F.
it to be a major chord.
That's right.
Because these are all major chords that we're learning. If we were doing minor, then maybe.
That's
okay.
right.
But since we're major, he's right.
That's right.
You
So
go to the black key.
So F sharp, and then we're going to go 3, 4, 5 up to A.
Okay, so we're on one black key.
One black
We're
key.
Right in the middle of the chord.
That's right. And that's your D chord.
And you're playing it with your middle finger. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm going to keep it
Got
all 1, 3, 5, the way your hand would just end up. Okay? Now, in the left hand, for all these chords, just to keep things simple, we're just going to play roots. So for the C chord, you want to take your left hand, put your 5th finger, your pinky, on the C, and just when you play the C chord, play the C along with your right hand.
Okay, now you're doing this on the C closest to the one you're starting with your right hand. Am I correct?
Yeah, it's what we call an octave.
An octave apart. You're not going to one of the C's further down. You're keeping them
Right.
kind of close.
It wouldn't matter if you did. It might sound a little muddy.
And the bass player would probably get kind of upset with
The bass
you?
player might not be real happy with you. You want
Right.
to stay out of his way.
Okay, so you're
They're
picking
very territorial.
the C over here
That's right.
with your pinky, and then you're starting the chord with this C on the thumb.
That's right.
Okay, great.
Okay? Same thing with the F. When you go to play the F chord, you just want to play an F with your 2nd finger in your left hand.
Okay.
Just slide up. You're not even moving your left hand. You're going to keep it where it's at. Just play that F. Same thing for the G. When you go to play the G chord in the right hand.
Yeah, you're not moving at all. You're
No.
changing your finger position, but your hand is in the same place.
That's right. So if we were to play that whole comping pattern again,
Okay.
same thing.
I see.
Okay, the left hand is just playing the roots of the chord, and the only other chord again in the bridge or in the B section is that D chord. But again, we're just going to play the D in the left hand when we play the D chord, the D triad in the right. Now that we have all that down, I think we're ready to demonstrate the parts of the song and demonstrate what's-
Sections?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so maybe I'll get back there and play some.
That'd be great.
All
Give
right,
us a
great.
little
Well,
bit
let's
of
do
time.
it. We'll do this.
Yeah,
Okay.
just get back there.
Right.
So we'll go through the first section first, and that's the C, F, and G, or the 1, 4, 5 part of the song. All right, so you want
Okay.
to demonstrate it?
Sure.
About here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good. Now you'll notice at the end of that section we had a little bit of a build-up. Nothing complicated. It's just at the end of the second to last bar, we're going to go to a G chord. So it's just a musical turnaround, nice way to get back to the top of the next section. It's a crescendo or a little bit of dynamics going from soft to loud, just a transition. So now let me demonstrate the second section.
Where the D chord will appear.
Where the D chord
for
is.
the first time.
That's
Okay.
right. And it also has a similar build-up at the end of this section as well.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah. was great.
Very good.
I mean, the way you and I...
Yeah, man.
That's terrific.
So take a listen to this. When you're comfortable, there's a performance section right after this. And when you're really comfortable, come back, and we've got something a little extra on this same song to teach you.
Bonus.
A little bonus.
A Warner Brothers bonus.
Let's try and take some of the concepts we learned and move them into another key. Now, we talked a little bit about the 1-4-5 concept in C. C being the 1 chord because it's the first note of the scale, right? F being the 4 chord because it's 4 steps up from C, and G being the 5 chord because it's 5 steps up from G.
Right.
Okay, all these concepts can be taken and moved to other keys using the major scale structure or formula that we talked about earlier, the whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half.
But you can't say that 3 times fast.
Absolutely not.
Okay, go ahead.
Absolutely not. I'll pass out. I'll hyperventilate. So let's take this and move it down to G. Take our thumb, put it on G, and just put the rest of the fingers where they naturally fall.
Okay.
And let's create, using our formula, a G scale. Whole step, another whole step, a half step, a whole step, another whole step, a whole step, and last, a half step. And that gets us back. Yeah. Okay? Now you'll notice that the last whole step put us on F sharp. Okay? So in the key of G, you will always have an F sharp. Okay? That will come in handy for later when we talk about some of these chords we're going to have to deal with. Now, if you remember, we talked about the 1-4-5 chord in the key of C. Now, we're going to come up with this in the key of G, and we're going to use the same idea.
Okay.
Okay? So the 1 chord, of course, is G, because we're in the key of G. So
and the root in G is?
G.
Right.
Okay? G. So we need to find the 1, 3, and 5 for the G triad.
Okay.
So the 1 is obviously going to be G. We're going to count up 1, 2, 3. That puts us on B. And then 4, 5 puts us on D. Okay? So that's same triad that we used in the key of C. Same triad. Now to find the 4 chord, we're going to count up 4 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. That puts us on C. So in the key of G, the 4 chord is C. So you're going to take your thumb, put it on C. Same thing. Count up. 1, 2, 3. There's our third. 4, 5. There's our fifth. It's the same C triad that we had in the key of C.
Starting it.
Starting, that's
Yeah.
right. So now we want to find the fifth. So let's go back to G, count up to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That puts us on D, okay?
Black key coming.
Yeah, I think so.
Black key coming.
So here's our thumb. We're going to put it on D and count up. 1, 2, 3. Now that puts us on F. Now when we did our scale, we found out that there's going to be an F sharp in the key of G. So we need to take that F natural and move it up to F sharp, okay? And then keep going. 3, 4, 5 puts us on A.
Because when you move half a step up, that's a sharp.
That's right. And so there's your D triad, right? D, F sharp, and A. The same triad we talked about in the key of C. Okay, actually, I'm sorry. Not in the key of C, but when we did the song in the key of C. Okay? So once again, our 1, 4, 5 in the key of G is G, C, and D. Now, I want to take the same concept of voicings and inversions that we used in the key of C and translate that here. Okay? So when we play the C chord, instead of voicing it in what we call root position, where the thumb is on the C, we're going to take that G, drop it down an octave,
Okay.
okay, and voice it this way. Same notes, C, E, and G. So that when we play the song, there's economy of motion.
Again, you're just
We're not
trying to
jumping
cut down
around.
the amount of effort.
You don't want to be jumping around on this instrument. It
Well,
just
some of
doesn't
us
make
like to jump around.
Well, but not on the piano.
Right. Okay.
You won't last long.
Yeah. you're
Okay,
probably right.
so here we go. So to get from G to C, we're going to keep the thumb on G and just move the third and fifth finger up to C and E.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
All right. The same thing when we get to the D chord. Instead of playing D in root position, where the thumb is on D, let's move the A down an octave.
Okay.
So we have it voiced like this. Same notes, D, F sharp, and A, just the A we've moved down. That way, when we go from C to D, it's just a whole step slide. Okay? All right. So the pattern in the key of G would look like this.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2,
Right.
3, 4.
Okay?
Yeah.
So that takes care of the first section. The second section, again, has those same 3 chords with 1 extra chord, and that's an A triad.
Instead of the D,
Instead of the D,
now we're doing an A, but I think there's going to be a black key here too.
there is. You're absolutely right. We won't talk about why it exists. It exists actually outside of the key of G, but